If you've ever had to wait an hour or so for your Insta background check to come through, that can be a little annoying. However, in the UK, they do things very differently. And in this video, I'm going to show you the process of purchasing a firearm in the UK, and I'm also going to compare it to how we purchase them here in the United States. So, you're in the UK and you want to buy yourself a gun. So there's different licenses. The first one is going to be a shotgun license. A shotgun license, you don't have to have a good reason to purchase a shotgun. So you just apply for the license. I'm going to cover that in the next section of this video, and also the firearms one as well. However, with the firearms license, there's a little bit more before you get to the application for, buying your gun and all that kind of good stuff. The first thing is you got to join a club. You have to be a member of a club, and you need to be a member of the club for 6 months. So you're going to be a probationary member for 6 months. During that period, you can shoot. You have to rent guns from the club, and you also have to buy ammunition while you're on site. You can't take ammunition home. It's restricted. You have to have a license for that. Now, after the 6 months is up, at that point you can go ahead and apply for your firearms license. This is going to be the application for a shotgun and also a firearms license. Part A is just your general information, where you live, email address, so on and so forth, nationality, occupation. They do want to know where you work. Part B, medical information. Well, in this section they want to know who your GP is, or as we'd call them over here in the US, a primary care doctor. Here they want to know about past offenses, if you've ever been in trouble. Now onto the section pertaining to firearms. If this is the first time you've applied for a firearms license, you would put none in the top box. So below that, they're going to want to know the caliber, type, make, serial number for any guns you already have, and also you have to put down the reason. So as I said earlier on, you have to have good reason to have the gun, so whatever the purpose is for that. So if you're a target shooter, you need to put down your club membership down. If you're using it on land or something like that, you need to put the information in pertaining to the person that's allowing you to shoot on their land. So in this section, you're going to put down what guns you want. You can't just go out and buy whatever you want. You have to basically have an open slot on your ticket in order to do that. So if I wanted to buy a 303 rifle, I would need to put in caliber 303, type rifle, and again, the reason to have it. So for example, if I was shooting in a club which only allowed me to shoot 22 long rifle, and I put in saying that I wanted to buy a 50 caliber BMG rifle, chances are I'm going to be turned down for that, because in their opinion I wouldn't have good reason to own that particular gun. And one other thing about this is if you put down one rifle, that means exactly that. You can only get that one. If you wanted to buy, for example, two 303 rifles, you would need to put 2 of them in there on that section. So onto ammunition. Unlike in the US, where we can buy pretty much what we want, in the UK you have to put down the amount of ammunition you want. So like when I owned handguns in the UK before they were banned, for example 38, I would put a maximum quantity of 600 down, and that would be the maximum amount I could have at any one time, and that would be that. So every caliber of ammunition you want, you need to put that in this section, stating the maximum amount you want of each and every caliber. And then past that, they're going to want to know about, security in your house, whether you've got a cabinet. If you've got firearms or looking to get a firearms license, you're definitely going to need to have cabinets. I don't quite know why they have these other boxes in there, but I'm pretty certain if you don't have the correct type of security in your house, they're probably going to deny your application. Ammunition with firearms also has to be stored in a separate locked box, separate from the firearms themselves. The next section pertains to shotguns. Anything that is 2+1, as in maximum of 2 rounds in the magazine, and any existing shotguns that you own would go in this section that fall in that category. The gauge of the shotgun, the type of the action, the make, and also once again the serial number. The only thing about this is you don't have to put down a good reason for on a shotgun license, and also you're not restricted to the number of shotguns you're allowed to own. Again, section about security here, same as the firearms certificate. The only difference is with shotgun ammunition is you don't have to keep that locked up. So the next section refers to a sponsor, or as they put it on the form, a referee, which is essentially somebody that's going to vouch for you and say, yeah, this guy's okay, or this girl's okay to have a license. So that you're going to need to find somebody that's going to be willing to do that for you. You have to have known them at least 2 years. So that would be necessary. If you're having a shotgun, you'd need one of those. However, if you are applying for a firearms license, now you actually have to have two referees. So you need a second person here to same thing, exactly the same as the first one, and they'd need to fill that information out and they'll be contacted as well. Now, the final section of this form is actually a section that has to be filled out by your GP, primary care as we call them in the US. Basically, in order to get a license, they have to sign off on you and say you are good to have a gun. So you have to put in their information in here as far as your doctor, and you have to send them a letter asking them to essentially sign off that you don't have certain mental disorders or issues. They have to fill the form out and then return it. This is the section, as you can see here, medical information. They also flag your application on their medical files too, that essentially allows them to have access to your medical files moving forward. So if they at some point in time think you may have some kind of issue, they can basically have access to your medical files in order to see if you've been to see a doctor about that. So your doctor would fill out all this information and that would then be sent back to the police. Now the next thing that's going to happen is you're going to hear from the police, and they're going to want to come over to your house. They're going to interview you, ask you a bunch of questions, and they're also going to check on the cabinets and make sure everything is installed correctly. They're going to swing on the cabinets and make sure they're not going to fall off the wall. And if everything goes well, within a few weeks you should get your firearms license in the mail. So finally, your license appears in the mail. So now you can go ahead and purchase your gun. And at this point, it's very simple. Just go down to your local gun shop, pick out the gun you want. Make sure you obviously have a slot on your license where you've chosen that gun. As I said before, a 303. As long as I got a slot for a 303 rifle on there, I can go ahead and buy a 303 bolt action rifle. So that's already on my license. I go to the store, I know this is the gun I want, and I go ahead and pay for it, and then they're going to write it on my license that I have this gun. Obviously going to put it down on their paperwork that I have this gun as well. And then that's pretty much it. I can walk out the door with the gun, take it home, lock it in my cabinet, and that's the process complete. So how do we buy a gun in the US? A lot easier than in the UK, I gotta tell you that. Now, I'm not gonna talk about some of the more restrictive states like California or New York. They have their own processes, and let's not even go there with Massachusetts. But let's talk about the southern states. My state, it's pretty simple. You go in the store or go to a gun show and you pick out the gun you want. Once you pick the gun out, you just go ahead and fill out a background check. This is a standard form that everyone has to fill out. It's an ATF, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms form. You fill this form out. I'm going to take you through a quick guide as far as how you fill it out, what you do. Once you do that, the background check gets called in. So this is the form you would need to fill out in order to get your background check to purchase your gun in the US. Anyone that's ever bought a gun in the US is going to be fairly familiar with this form. The very first section, Section A, is completed by the gun store themselves, just identifying the gun you're going to buy, the serial number, type, and caliber or gauge. This information, however, is not shared with the government. They do not get to keep this information. It stays in the gun shop, which in my opinion is a good thing. The next section is going to be Section B, which is the section that you would fill out as the purchaser. You know, basic information, where you live, your name, you know, where you were born, whether it was the United States, if it was, what state, or if it's a foreign country, the name of the country. Just basic information, and then past that, ask you for your social security number, which is the equivalent of a national insurance number in the UK. You don't have to fill that in, but it does help them identify you as an individual when they're doing the background check. And then just basic ethnicity and also race questions. Are you a citizen of the United States? And then the next set of questions are yes/no questions. Just basically, you have to go through and answer those questions. I'm not going to tell you what the correct answer are for these. However, you just have to read each and every one of them and answer them. You know, first one being, are you the actual transfer/buyer of this firearm? Second one, do you intend to sell or otherwise dispose of any firearm listed on this form? And so on and so forth. Are you a fugitive from justice? Have you been adjudicated mentally defective, or have you been committed to a mental institution? So you can see some of these questions are somewhat similar to the questions that they ask in the United Kingdom, as far as when you're filling out a firearm certificate application form, and in some ways a little different as well, but they're basically questions you have to answer yes or no to. Once you've done that, you would then go ahead and sign and date the form, and at that point the gun store fills the rest of it out, and once they're done, they go ahead and call in a background check on you. Now, once the background check is called in, one of a few things are going to happen. One, you're going to be approved, that's good. Two, you're going to be denied, that's bad. Or three, there may be some kind of hold on it where it takes a certain amount of time to come through. Contrary to common opinion, a lot of states in the United States have a waiting period. So when you buy a gun, although you buy it on a particular day, you pass the background check, you're not allowed to take the gun home that same day. Now, I'm in a state where if you have a concealed weapon permit, you can take the gun home the same day, but that's a separate process you have to go through before you can do that. So there you have it. There's the difference between the UK and the US. Now, me personally, I much prefer the United States way of doing business when it comes to purchasing firearms, specifically in the South anyway. However, as far as the UK goes, I personally feel that their rules are very, very restrictive, too restrictive. Now, the anti-gun people, you guys are going to comment on here and you're going to tell me that all these things are put in place because of mass shootings. There's a lot more to those stories, and those things I'm going to talk about more in upcoming videos. I do want to get into that subject. However, I don't believe that these restrictions on the people in the UK as far as shooting are correct or right. I think that you can have a much better system than this, where you still keep guns out of the wrong people's hands, but while allowing people to enjoy the sport. Bottom line is, when you make it as difficult as this to own a gun, then people are just not going to go and do it in the first place. The numbers say it all. 500,000 shotgun licenses with a process that's kind of a pain but not too bad, versus 150,000 firearms licenses. That says a lot in England and Wales. The numbers speak for themselves.